Hey, welcome to a brand new episode of the Straight Up Show podcast. I am your host, Calvin, joined by my co-host, Christina and Lee. How you ladies and guys doing today?
I'm good.
Calvin, I am here. I am queer. And I am used to it.
There we go.
So used to it.
And I say ladies and guys, because this is what this episode is talking about, like pronouns. Because guess what? It is Pride Month. So with that being said, happy Pride Month, everybody.
Woo!
Woo! Woo!
Woo!
And of course, we have some special guests. As we do every Pride Month, we want to bring on our friends from the LGBT community. Christina, you have a special guest. Can you please introduce your special guest today?
Alrighty. And of course, our guest today is one of my favorite little people in the world, Jason Woods. I'm going to let him do his own introduction because he's got more stuff to add to his title now.
The returning champion from last year.
Hi, I am back from, with popular demand. I am now not only a photographer, I'm also a filmmaker and a recent graduate of college. So snaps to that.
Who snaps? Ooh,
Congratulations. Hell yeah.
Thank you. It's hard and I'm very, very tired. Christina can attest to that.
Well, we are definitely proud of you and thank you so much for coming on our show today. And so we'll toss it over to Lee because Lee has two guests today. Lee, please introduce your guests and tell us who they are. Let them tell them who they are.
Thanks, Calvin. So yeah, I put out a little call on Facebook and I was super happy that I got some really nice responses from people to come on the show. And Kevin and Kyle, how are y'all doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty excited to do this. I'm always happy to tell my little story and, just share my thoughts on stuff and just, gab about.
Excited, a little anxious and nervous, but mostly excited.
I am right there with you, Kevin. My stomach was kind of in knots, like up until this very moment, I think. But you know what? We are going to power through it because, talking about this stuff can be kind of hard. It's really putting yourself out there. Kyle, can you kind of introduce yourself to the folks? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Okay, no problem. Hi, everybody. My name is Kyle. I go by he, him, and they, them for gender pronouns. And, I'm just a random trans dude from the Midwest of Canada, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, more specifically. I've, been around the internet for quite a while. I love to play video games. I love anime. I love a lot of nerdy stuff. I love horror movies. I love queer things. I got to know Lee through some of those random topics. And Lee was sweet enough to bring me on the show, and I'm very honored to be here. I'm honored to, like I said earlier, to tell my story, gab about, just talk, and just really get my chance to speak. I always appreciate that type of thing. So, I'm really hyped and excited to be here and, share my thing.
Yeah, we definitely need that energy. I love that energy, Kyle.
Thank you.
Seriously.
Much appreciated.
We are so glad to have you here. And
many kudos. Thank you.
And it is so crazy, like kind of like the space we met in was a Facebook group dedicated to a pop culture podcast.
Yeah.
Hosted by mostly straight men.
Yeah, and that's the weirdest thing. I've met some of the most diverse people through that podcast group. Like, it's weird. Like, I know trans women and black guys that are into fighting video games, and I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, woo, 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 hell yeah. I'm just so excited. And I know non-binary people from all over the globe, and I know people from the Middle East, and they're into movies and video games, and just this is amazing. Holy I can't believe it. This is awesome.
I love that I had very specific examples of the people you were listing just now. I know who you're talking about.
I was gonna say you might even know
those circles.
All right, and then we also have Kevin. Kevin, can you just tell us a little bit about you and your background and maybe how you met Lee?
All right, my name is Kevin. In regards to pronouns, he and they, but usually I just usually want to be referred to as Kevin by people. For me, when it comes to words like man, guy, and dude, it can be kind of weird to be referred to as those. But more on that later. Um, I currently work in education in South Texas, and interests include gaming. Currently playing on Steam on the Nintendo Switch. Um, and right now I'm like trying to wrap up Final Fantasy 12. And I guess I also like singing, writing, anime, socio-political issues. I try to incorporate whatever I can of all my interests into my teaching in regards to education as well, to really educate the students down here, because it's mostly like a lower income, mostly like Mexican student background, or background down here with the people. I'm also Mexican and Vietnamese, and I've known Lee for about, I want to say 15 years. Goodness, I don't know if I want to.
That long. So old.
I don't know if I want to say our usernames, but I know we were like some of the top posters at a forum. It was called gaygamer.net /forum. And goodness, it doesn't feel like it was a long time ago, but then it does, because that was like that was half my life ago. And I totally am like really I would love to speak on you all's podcast. And I'm probably coming off just a little nervous, but I'm excited to be here and to share my perspectives and hear you all's.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate you, and thank y'all so much for coming on the show and lending your voices out to us, because I mean that's a lot we don't know. And like I said, this is Pride Month, and so let's just kind of, hey, it's the time to celebrate and be happy for who you are and what you stand for. And
Hell yes.
yeah, there we go. I love the energy. So I'm gonna toss this to Jason, because he is the OG of the group, of being our guest. Jason, so if you can just give us a little history right quick, like, this is Pride Month. What is Pride Month?
Pride Month is a celebration of all things queer, all things LGBT, and other, letters of the alphabet mafia. Um, I also myself, I identify as a bi, and when it comes to gender, I'm on the cusp. I'm just kind of like all over the place when it comes to gender. So I'm just like, you can say that I don't really have, I don't really identify with gender as a whole. So you can say I'm like a gender or somewhere under the non-binary umbrella. But I'm just kind of, but your boys just kind of chill. Uh, but we are a whole bunch of awesome people, and we have cookies, and we are very proud to be who we are, no matter if you're out or if you're on the cusp of coming out, or if you're just kind of like existing or chilling. If you're not ready to be out and proud, like, you're still valid, you're still here, you're still awesome AF, and we're all just chilling. We're all here.
So Jason, like, I kind of feel you there. The whole pronoun thing is okay. Yeah, it can be complicated. Or for some people it's really not, because you know what you are, and hey, that's awesome. I'm still figuring it out myself. That's the fun of it. But for you, it doesn't seem to matter to you. So does that mean like, hey, anything works, or maybe you prefer nothing? Is that where we're going?
Anything goes. Like, I usually just go by he, him out of comfort, out of like, I'm just kind of used to that. So that's how I am going by for it. It's kind of like, it's a free for all basically. As long as you ain't calling me like some dumb, like, it or something like that, I'm cool.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, it's very fluid. So it's like, you don't really have to like, be one way to, be like that. Because it's like, you can be straight or whatever and still be able to like be like, hey, I want to have like he, they pronouns, or she, they, or hell, any even neo pronouns or anything like that. It's like, people don't realize that gender and sexuality, there's no correlation.
Right.
Not really a correlation. Like, who do you identify as yourself? It doesn't really translate to like who you're. So I'm like, who you are. So like, I think once people, I say is like once people free themselves from the shackles that is gender, literally anything goes. Like especially with like how clothing and all of that. For example, clothing is so gendered, and it's kind of annoying because it's like women and film presenting people are able to dress up so beautifully in so many different patterns, so many different layers. While when it comes to more like male presenting fashion, is much so more boring, more solids, more there's not really much in a form of like experimentation or adventurousness when it comes to clothing and gender. But I I only know like so much about it because it's like I'm only one person, so multiple perspectives on it is always a cool thing to have. So we'll see how it
And I,
goes from there.
and I think that's a lot of what it boils down to is just your own personal journey. And that's like, I guess that's as any, now's as good a time as any to segue into my own personal journey. Like just over the past couple of years, I've seen kind of the wave coming of I guess gender questioning or like gender, I guess transitioning, however uh, however my words are failing me here, but you know where I'm going with this. But I've seen this wave coming, and it's something that's been around forever. Honestly, it's just been buried by conservatives for just as long. But we can you know get into that at a later date. But for me in particular, it was like I thought I was done coming out. It's like, okay, you're gay, you're attracted to dudes. That's just, there's other stuff that's like a part of it or whatever. But like after coming out, it's like, nah, this crap's way more complicated than you realize. Like even amongst the gay community, like dating or whatever, you see on Grindr, no femmes. That's a whole thing. And
Wait, what? Seriously?
Yeah.
The
That's
gays are weird.
You didn't know
gays are
about this,
weird.
Kelvin?
Okay.
It goes back.
You talking
Yeah.
to a guy who didn't know that racism existed in the gay community. Thank you, Jason. But I didn't know that. But y'all really have like just very specific on Grindr.
Yeah. People have like crazy hangups. Like the most like common / memeable one is no fats, no femmes. That's like you'll see that more than anything.
Because sometimes people are just kind of
Exactly.
Even in a community that is already like oppressed as is. We
Yeah,
gotta
no
oppress
kidding.
our own people.
Exactly.
It be your own people.
We have to divide ourselves even more than we already are.
Because I know when I start a dating profile and I want to be accepting, I act like the biggest bully possible.
Right. But yeah, for me it was like I never really felt comfortable in my own skin, and I like I said, I always assumed that was just the gay thing. But then even when I started dating and stuff, it's like I see so much of this in the community. It's like, okay, it's not just like me being gay, it's me being something. And it wasn't ever to the point of like, oh, I see myself as feminine. Like I definitely have those qualities, but it's like I don't see, like most days I don't even see myself as a person. I'm just like this weird amorphous gray blob that puts clothes on, and that's kind of like how I see myself.
I vibe with that.
Right. And like another thing that like
I
really...
have those days too. Oh my goodness.
And then another thing that kind of resonated with me, like, it has always been video games. I know I'm in good company here based on our introductions, but like, especially ones where you can create your own character and, you can pick between male or female. And it's like, well, like Jason even said, in video games, females more often than not have the better clothing options. So maybe I'm going to rock with that sometimes, but sometimes I'm going to rock the male. And like, more modern video games, it's like, nah, we're just throwing away the gender option. You can just have whatever, wherever, it's beautiful. I love it because it's just so much fun to make characters. But I digress. But like I'm seeing myself in these characters I'm creating because it's meant to be my avatar. So it's like, yeah, I'm making like this, buff dude with like these pink pigtails, and this is just vibing with me. I can't explain why. And then you see people talking online, and it's like, oh, what is gender fluid? What is non-binary? And like I just start reading these things, and it's like stuff just clicks with you. It's like, oh, I don't really see myself as male or female. So yeah, hence non-binary right here. That's how that got here. That's the superhero origin story of me saying I'm a they them.
And can I toss this question over to I guess, well, this would be for Cal, I guess. So
Sure.
and Cal, so you are a transgender male, right?
Yep.
But like, so kind of going off what he just said, like and since you are transgender, like
Mhm.
how does it how big is pronouns for you since you are transgender?
I think pronouns are very important. I think they're very freeing. I feel like you can really find yourself when you have the right type of pronouns, like pronouns that really fit you. Like it's like wearing a perfect pair of shoes where it's just like, holy shit, these feel great. Like, oh my goodness, I feel alive. I feel like a person. I feel like me. Like I feel like I found myself.
So like, so and this is me. This is the straight side coming out. I guess the straight side asking the question. So you were born a female, but you transitioned into a male. Is that correct?
Funny you should ask that. I was actually born intersex. I'm one of the very rare few examples of people who were born intersex.
Can you elaborate?
Sure, I'll try my best. I still don't know all the exact ins and outs and the meanings of it, but I was born with literally uh, both chromosomes, quote unquote male chromosomes and female chromosomes. And when I was born, I was technically born with both sides. I'd go a bit more into it, but it gets a bit TMI, too much information. It involves like testicles and private parts and that sort of thing. But yes, I was actually born intersex.
Okay. Yeah, because the reason why I ask is like, I know pronouns were really big, and as Lee said it,
Yeah.
how he feels about it. Because I don't know if y'all remember, Christina, there was a transgender, and he was at a gas station, and like he was like the person at the gas collector was like, "Hey, I'm sorry, sir, I'm a man." Like, I'm okay, I'm sorry, ma'am. No, I'm a sorry. Like, and it was like this guy just got or this person got into a rage, and it was like, oh man, like are pronouns really that important?
Yes, they are. They are very important. I think it also depends on the specific person, because I think for a lot of people it's important, but maybe for some people it may not be. But I think for the common person, I would argue that they are important.
Can I add on to that?
Go for it.
So it often depends on like where you're from, because I not to pick out what you're saying, Calvin, but like you wouldn't say like a transgender. Like, and
Yeah.
I've talked to my own like mom about this, and you don't have to apologize because I've had this conversation with like so many people. But like when it comes to pronouns, it often depends on where you're at and who you're at. Like when I'm with people, like if I'm doing like political work, like when I've lobbied at the Capitol, or when I'm doing like club work with like the LGBT Alliance, or whenever I did that stuff, like I knew people were more aware of that. But when I'm with like some of my friends that like from like I know I did a call center job for a while, you meet people from all walks of life there. I know a lot of them did not know a lot of it was. And I met one of my current best friends that way, and he's been really accepting. And I think one thing is like, and I'm not coming at y'all for this, it's like we all have different experiences and how we relate to, or not relate, maybe respond to like people's gender diversity. Like with me, like if someone says he, him, and I tell them the whole thing about, you know, my own pronouns. I'm like, oh no, it's cool. This is what I prefer, like in these contexts. And usually if they respect me or care about me enough, you know, after they know me a while, they'll usually try to I just tell them I prefer Kevin. And they usually run with that.
Right. And thank you so much for being, showing some clarity on that, or shedding some clarity on that, because, this is why we have this space, because I am someone who is not familiar with the LGBT community plus community, because I don't know, and so thank you so much for, it's not a dig at me if not knowing. It's just like, hey, I don't know. And it's okay, so I'm ignorant on this subject, but I'm glad that you were able to clarify on that.
So Evan, I see on there you've got on your little Zoom profile here that we're all sharing, you've got he plus they. So when did the plus they come into play for you?
So for me, and I guess I'll rewind a little bit, but I'll try to be brief. Growing up, I always assumed I was cis male. And then, when I was like, this might sound weird, when I was like 6 years old, I was like, oh, gay thoughts. I was like, okay, I'm a cis gay male, or a gay cis male. And it wasn't until, goodness, it was in my 20s. I was going to counseling at one of the local colleges, and you had to do like a triage before you even like met with one of the counselors, and it asked what the triage survey or whatever asks, like what gender do you identify as, male, female, or other? Please specify. And that blew my mind. For me, I was like, I never thought about that. And that was in 2014. And for me, I was just like, you know what? I don't always feel like I identify as like purely male. And a lot of it maybe has to do with my experiences. I don't know if I want to elaborate on those yet. Maybe they can like, kind of make their way into the conversation a little later on, if not now, but I'd rather not rant. But then as the years passed by, I was like, you know what? This feels kind of like home for me, like I realized that my experiences as what I believe were like a cisgender gay male were not just like specifically cisgender. And I don't know if all of y'all the straights here know what cisgender is.
I was going to ask you what that meant.
So it's like when you agree with the gender you were born as. So Calvin, I want to ask you, do you believe that you were like born a male, and do you still identify as a male?
I do.
See, it's I like your face, because it was like slightly like, what? Yeah, that's usually how being cis is. It's a weird thing, like when I tell people like, oh, cisgender, because I feel like half of my friends are cis, the other half are like, wherever else. And like
cis, like sissy, or
no,
Oh.
CIS. It's a weird prefix. It's
okay,
a weird
my bad.
prefix.
I was like,
No, it's fine.
No, but definitely thank you, because I was, when I heard it, I was like,
thinking
wait,
like,
what
I was
term
thinking
is
like,
that?
I was thinking like extra feminine, like sissy, or.
Well, I wasn't thinking on the lines of that, but I'm glad you spelled it out, because I haven't seen it yet written, and I would like to have known that. So it's not, what is this now? Because it seems like every month I'm hearing something new. So I'm glad you actually spelled that out for me.
I think in response to you, Brandon, it's like giving words to identities that have always existed for
Lee
people.
said something similar, yeah.
But we never could find the words for them. Like here where I live in South Texas, a lot of people fight with their like Mexican identities. Like there's like code switching. There is a lot of like people not feeling at home down here. There is all different types of like prejudice, and like it's weird. Like it's different, because when people assume Mexican, sometimes I feel like it's a very limited perspective, but down here, like there's so much more identity to that. There's so many terms I'm still trying to figure out, and they're a little irrelevant, but I'm just like, dang, like their identities are so nuanced. And I feel like with the cisgender thing, going back to it so I don't like ramble, is like when after going to counseling for a while and after, you know, my experiences, I was like, you know, I don't always feel like I've always felt like a cisgender gay male. I felt like a lot of my experiences were just kind of not always related to my gender. Like I remember dancing, and I remember this guy, this redneck guy from Georgia, because I grew up in Georgia. He called me, like, he was like, "What are you, a faggot?" And like, you know, when like a lot of straight men and just straight people in general kind of like demonize you using terms that are like like they'll demonize like femininity. They often will equate femininity with like homosexuality. I don't know if y'all want to add on to that as well, but I'm just like, oh my god, like for me, I was just like, why do we always have to assume like male equals this and female is this when they can be neither, either, everything, nothing at all? And I feel like for me, my identity is kind of weird because it's like I feel like I can't remove myself from the gay male, but I don't always feel like I'm cis gay male. Like I assigned male at birth, and I feel like a lot of my identity is with that, but it's also just like not with that. Like if I'm with people who are more aware of like all this gender diversity, all these different sexual orientations and whatnot, I'll be like, okay, they can, you know, they might be more cognizant of calling me they, them, or Kevin, but usually with anybody, just call me Kevin in general.
I actually really enjoyed hearing that one because a lot of different points you made in that little dialogue, I guess, monologue. I enjoyed every moment of it though. Is, you know, I have certain opinions. I'm not going to hold them against or to anybody. So, I mean, by any means, you don't have to feel like you have to argue me down or teach me anything from it. But as far as the identifying topic goes for any of these, and Jason knows my opinions on these, is I feel like anytime that you have to start putting a name to something, I understand why. Don't think I don't. I get that 100%. But I was like, anytime that becomes a factor in something, it automatically starts kind of like chafing at me a little bit because I'm like, why? If that's what you need to have your growth and your comfort, by all means, yes. I was like, but personally, I get annoyed by it. And I'm like, okay, so if you like to be called Kevin, I will 100% call you Kevin. Now, if you say, oh, I prefer they, I'm like, okay, I'll try my best to remember that. But usually I'm going to default to saying Kevin. That's fine and dandy, but I know people personally who it infuriates them that I
Like,
just want to call them by their name. And they're like, you have to respect this. I was like, I do respect it. I understand it. I empathize with it, and I'm happy that you have it.
I feel like I
But
need to
just
write
let me
notes as
call
you're
you by
talking
your
into
name.
that.
Right. I'm kind of on the lines of what Christina, but I don't think Lee realized, and you basically repeated the same thing Lee said the last time we recorded, is about we never really needed the need for the name, for I guess the terms, names, the labels for these type of things. For me, the frustration I know that I get from it, because I have been scarred from like the beginning from this, and when I had like a very close friend that I helped basically with his transition, and the moment he was like in the end game of that transition, he started attacking me with because of these labels. You know, I'm gonna tell you now, when I saw like y'all names and it says he, him, they, them, F, he plus they, I was like, because I was like, I might mess up. Oh, sorry, Calvin, you're gonna have to beat that out to make the editing harder for you. But I don't have an issue with the new labels. I think what me and Christina, just like Latinx, you know, or is it Latinx? You know, it's this new thing, and we as humans, I don't care who you are, don't like change. I mean, it's even with, you know, the racist culture we're in now. You know, people are not liking this very constant change, and I think for us, that's a little bit part of that. There is a label for people that don't that only eat seafood. And I was like,
Pescatarian.
why? See, no,
Pescatarian.
why? Why is that a thing? Why do we need this in the world? But
I feel like you're
I
just
get
asking,
it.
why does language exist?
Why? But see, that's
but
where I'm at
I
though.
get
it's
it.
But that's where I'm
communication.
at though. And
I
it's
understand.
very the same thing.
I understand. That's why I'm like, I understand all around. I really do. So I can't emphasize enough that nothing I say is meant to be like, well, this is stupid. No, I understand all the facets of this. I do. It's just something that personally to me, in the experiences I have had with it, only mine, and I've had way too many at this point. And it's just I'm like, okay, so all the titles have always bothered me, like lifelong bothered me, way before these became a forefront conversation. You know, and naturally people look and they say, oh, she's a straight woman, yada yada. That pisses me off automatically, always has, because I'm like, I don't like I having to identify as anything, race, gender, sex, any. I've never been comfortable with people asking or assuming anything about me.
Christina, it sounds a lot like you're very uncomfortable with people putting you in a box.
I don't
I can
like
see that.
I don't like it at all.
So
I
can
don't
you
know.
imagine how, like, you know, non-gender, non-conforming people feel when you don't
I
respect their
can.
pronouns?
I said I can, and that's why I was like, once I've been told, like, if you acknowledged what you want, I'm like, okay, I can only try that. And as long as you don't have to be patient. I mean, I'm not saying you have to. I was like, but as long as you at least kind of acknowledge, like, all right, she might mess up here and there, but okay, cool. I'm good with trying, but I have just had so many people who are just mean about it, which I get to an extent, but I'm like, I don't know you yet. Don't yell at me, because I'm gonna turn into an just based off of that. I'm like, I know you're frustrated. I know you've been hurt, and I know you want these things to happen right now, and I will be on your side 100% to make it happen. Don't be to me.
I'm trying not
Okay.
to take this from like too political of a take, because I'm kind of tired about like talking to about politics with like people who I'm not really close to. That's why I cultivate a very small group of people now, and they all don't think like me. Like I don't like preaching to the choir. I don't try to put myself in an echo chamber, you know. And I feel like your experiences, Christina, some of them are with people who only want to be around people who think just like them. But I feel like that's kind of an issue with many people nowadays. Like,
This is true.
and for me, it's just like, oh my God, like that best friend I made, like he doesn't know about the whole gender thing. When I told him, um, you know, about my own experience, he's like, okay, I don't know anything about that. He wasn't gonna try to say like educate me or whatever. He was just like, you seem like a really cool, interesting, and great person, so I'm just gonna get to know you on your terms. And that's how I feel like a lot of friendships should be. Because as soon as like you like, I know you're talking about all the terms, Christina, like for me as an English master student, or I mean, I got my master's degree in English.
Mhm.
I feel like language is really important, but it also isn't. So I try to, you know, when people say like, oh, understand this thing from like two sides, I'm like, that there's like way more sides than like two, first of all. Like I get exactly where you're coming from. Like sometimes I'll go into a bio and or like someone's like about me and I'm like, oh my God, it's like 40 identifiers. But then I'm like, you know what? That's what that person does. I might go to someone else's biography and I might find out more about them through just talking to them instead of the identifiers. That's what they do as well. I still try to meet people in the ways that they want to be reflected. So like me, I'm not going to throw all those identifiers out there, but I know that's for some people, that's how they work. They do want to put a name to things. That's what they do. If some people don't want to, fine. But I know for me personally, again, with like where I got my degree, like that's where I see where all of this comes into play. Like words have a lot of power, but then they also don't at all. But I do believe that they're important as society progresses. So even if you're saying that you don't like we have to use these words, I feel like it's important that we as people understand that this helps some people realize who they are and how they identify in the world.
I understand what you're saying on that one. I have no arguments against any of this. I understand if that's what makes you comfortable and what makes you feel whole or centered. I have no problems with that. I know personally I don't like certain things, but I don't like a lot period.
Same.
And I just kind of roll with it. And I'm like, so I'm not going to go out of my way to make things difficult. And I don't know if everybody in here remembers much about my face. I'm not the most approachable looking individual sometimes.
Oh, don't say that.
Why?
Come on.
I have
You look-
RBF.
No. She has resting face.
I do.
Oh.
And I am a very
You look
funny
lovely. Don't
person.
say that. Come on.
Lovely resting bitch
Yeah, it was
face.
ugly. I am not the type of person to approach people. None of these people in this room did I go up to and say hello. Guaranteed.
I'm kind of the same.
And I love them. I was like, so I'm just saying that to point it out that I'm not walking up to people like, I don't like this. And that's not me. All of my opinions have come from people that I've known for years. I've watched people transition. I've watched people come into themselves. I've watched people become and revert back. I have seen all these different views. And a good 50% of them, understandably, because you're human, it happens. Some become super aggressive. And I'm like, whoa, when have I ever portrayed myself in this type of way? And they because I understand they've been upset, but I have one individual friend right now literally just came out with their pronouns and identifiers and stuff. Very happy right now. I'm like, great, you literally are glowing. That's all I've ever told them. I was like, you look very happy right now. Happier. And I've known this person 11 years now. Love them dearly. And I think there was a particular comment they made on their Facebook page, and I didn't say anything, but it was so angry. And everybody was just like, wait, why are you so angry right now? You literally you've been going on this journey internally, and you're angry that everybody else around you doesn't respect it or acknowledge it automatically. And we're like, Tuesday you were just do. It's Thursday, and now we have to relearn a decade of you from what we've known. And this was a person in my military unit, so I've been with them for over a decade. You know, it's like you've never shown any of these signs, and I understand your battles and your demons were inside, and I want to help you through them. Now not like I'm gonna fix them. I'm not a hero. It's not my problem. But it's kind of like it became a complete 180, and you're just like, okay, I want to be all those things you want out of people, but you're so fucking mean right now. Where do we go from here?
Are the loud people and aggressive ones like the ones that stick out? Like, I don't know if you're like me, because like I kind of feel like, I mean, I'm friends with Lee, but I feel like the way you're talking, I'm like, oh my God, I think I'd be friends with Christina, because like some of the most difficult conversations have given me the best of friends.
Yeah.
And like it's like sometimes like this is where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna learn how much I'm gonna learn so much about someone like this, because like I'm hearing you talk about this, and like a few times you've mentioned like some people are really loud and aggressive about their identities and who they are, who they have been, who they will be, etc. And I'm just like, dang, like is there like has this specifically happened with only like this person, Brandon, or is it like multiple people? Because I'm like, damn, like I'm just like
There's been multiple.
Yeah, and that's
And
what we're here for. Like, this is what we want to have, these ongoing conversations, because we build friends this way. And all it takes is just for us just to take a step back and listen to each other and learn about our personal experiences. And like I said, this is Pride Month. So it's this opportunity for us to be happy and celebrate and make new friends. So we hope that you continue to stay with us. We're going to have more as we celebrate Pride Month on the other side of the break. Stay tuned.
Straight up means to be able to speak in a way that is straight up, to be honest, and to speak your truth.
Raw, uncut, you know what I mean? It's blunt, you know, straight to the point. This is what it is.
It's just a place to be open and honest, and that's what I appreciate most about it. And it provides a place for community members to come together and just be straight up with each other about things that are going on in the world, because it affects all of us.
Unfiltered, raw, with all the cursing that Calvin does.
Straight up is just being real, telling it like it is, you know, being you.
Being solid, being who you are, no matter what it is, no matter what situation you're faced with. All right, this is who you are. It really speaks to me, saying it is what it is and it ain't what it ain't. Straight up.
All right, so welcome back to the Straight Up Show podcast. It is Pride Month, and if you've heard already, I mean, we've been having some great dialogue. The straight people have been stepping on toes, I guess, because we've been mispronouncing people's identity or pronouns a lot. I know I have. It's practice. I've already called Kyle a he or she. I've messed up so much already, but like Kyle said, it takes practice, right? So not being offended. So
it just takes practice. That's all that needed.
And so,
who are the straight?
You said the straight people. It's like, golly.
Yeah, because we're straight.
Don't bring yourself down like that.
Okay. Wow. So we have a interesting group of bunch. But hey, this is what Pride is about. We're learning from each other and we're celebrating these people. See, I'm being here. These people. We're celebrating the community being happy and who they are, and we're learning from each other, because one thing we don't want to be is insensitive, because we want to learn to love. Well, we want to learn from each other, but that learning from each other also spreads the love, and we want to spread love to the LGBTQ plus community. So that's what we're doing here. But if you listen to the last part of our episode, Christina and Kevin were going back. All right, Christina, you had a question for Jason?
Oh no, you can accept. That wasn't a question for him. It was just something I was wondering if he would touch on it when he's talking. Because where that kind of where I was coming from when I was asking if he's okay with that one was a matter of Jason's story in particular. To me, there's a lot of people who are gay or whatever who are passable in a way. Like you'd be like, I never knew. Like I'll even use Lee. I never would have known. I mean, that's not like it's something that you can look at everybody and see.
It's literally why I'm trying to change my look up. I'm tired of passing.
I'm
like, 1000% serious about this.
I wanted to know in Jason's particular story what it was like coming up, not only having to figure yourself out and find your comfort zone, but being so visibly seen as gay in the first place. Even if he was like, no, I'm not. Like, you sure?
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you bring that up at all. And I love you dearly, but you know, that's my little.
So I'm gonna chop up
a fruit fly.
Her fruit fly. I'm gonna chop up a shit ton of my actual mannerisms to not really like queerness, but more so just like the fact that I was raised around women my whole entire life. Mm-hmm. Never really had a quote unquote male figure in my life. And all the male figures in my life growing up are kind of trash. So I just have a lot of feminine, mannerisms that just kind of came from, that. And then the whole, people associating femininity with homosexuality or queerness of that, archaic ass standard. It's just kind of like, it just kind of is what it is. But it's like being so inherently femme as like, a southern black person, let alone, queerness and stuff, it does get kind of annoying having to be like, no, I'm not actually just, gay. But it's also like we're always so ingrained, like we're have it ingrained in our whole entire psyches, especially in the South, that they're either going to be like, the minute you show any kind of femininity or any kind of expression, like other than like, like machismo male, you're gonna get like, either made fun of or you're gonna get questioned no matter what. You're gonna get clocked no matter what. And that's one thing that we just have to stop. We just gotta unlearn those conditionings that we've been conditioned to learn, because it's like not everyone is, like not everyone's gonna be like, just because I present like kind of like femme, got like the twist and the limp wrist, even though my limp wrist is strong. Is that doesn't necessarily have to mean like, oh, I'm like, gay or, queer or whatever. It doesn't have to know that. It doesn't have to like, come down to that. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that like it doesn't have to come down to like mannerisms don't equate to identity or sexuality at all. Same thing for interest, because like I can say I have a ton of like more quote unquote feminine interest. Like, I like makeup. Makeup is cool and fun. Like hair is always really cool too, because like also kind of being like the only child ish. Like my mom always, she'd be like, "Hey, can you, see if my hair looks all right?" and all of that stuff. I didn't really associate that with me being like, queer or anything. But one thing I can say that all of that kind of led to is like me kind of like thinking of myself as more like, okay, I can be more masculine or I can be more feminine in my head, because it's like having all of these like somewhat femme features. There's some times where I'm like, you know what? If I were, a woman, it it wouldn't feel so out of place. But it's also like we're so what to say? We're so like stuck on looks, on how on visual beauty, that like, if someone wants to, try to transition from, one gender to the other, sometimes it's gonna be hard to. I know for me, my if I ever decide to transition, if I ever get to that point, it'll be hard as hell for me, because like I am so inherently like like gay male looking, that like if I try to present as any kind of feminine, people are gonna look at me like, "Are?" So
I don't think there's anything inherently feminine looking about Jason. Jason's a solid dude.
exactly.
Well,
Like you are
it's
a
funny.
big dude.
It's funny you say that, Christina, because I remember when and there's been many times. I remember when I first saw Jason, and people get on to me about this. Somebody would look at Jason and say, "Oh, he's gay," and I'm like, maybe, maybe. You really don't know. But later on, I found out more. But I have told Jason many times, I like Jason because of who he literally is as a package. I mean, we were downtown shooting, and just even how the guy was shooting, I'm like, that's Jason. Like you can't even put a which is why it's funny how you can't really put a label. I wouldn't even try to put a label on Jason. I mean, he says that, but I mean, dude, I've seen some transitions to where they have worked miracles. So you never know. I'm just saying. But I can't I wouldn't want you to try to change or even try to, I guess, adapt to any type of, I guess, society level, because right now we are in such of a unorthodox time to where, yes, man, I have had exes say, I thought you were gay. Tell me. I'm like, what the hell? How? When? What? Huh? All the things that I say, you think I'm gay? I'm
and
like, how?
it
But
always goes towards like, it's always about people having this like, this like very, very rigid, very, very rigid, like wondering is like, oh, this is what male is, this is what female is. Anywhere in between doesn't exist. All of that stuff. And that's why we don't really know much about intersex people at all, because it's like people are so stuck on what's male and what's female that people don't really talk about what's in between. And well, not only but what's in between is more so like is more so is a spectrum. Like gender is a performance. It's a spectrum. You can be whatever you want, and sexuality is just as fluid. But like I said, it all boils down to how society has conditioned us to think. And if we break ourselves from those shackles, it's gonna be hard to do. But if we do it, we'll be better off as a society. It's hard to do, but we can do it. It can happen. So
Yeah, it goes, I guess, me not being that masculine, Old Spice commercial looking type of guy, or me being the type of guy that doesn't, isn't as, forceful or whatever it is, that put me, or women try to possibly say, Brandon might be gay. And I'm like, no, if you had a conversation with me, you want to try, you probably know by now I'm not. But it was just the craziest thing. But going back, definitely, Jason, stay the same for real.
Jason is a big book of amazing, annoying but amazing.
I think if we've learned one important detail from this podcast, it's that Brandon apparently doesn't put out.
Oh,
wow.
You know what? No, let's talk about that. That might be another thing too. I'm not gonna force myself on you, I'm not gonna be the one to force
There's just some really dumb people out there who hold men in particular to this stupid standard. And then they're angry at all the men later for defending themselves.
And that whole conversation there is part of it. It's we put these expectations on each other, and then we get pissed when we meet those expectations.
Well, what am I going to be mad about now?
Exactly. But yeah, it's
Kevin said something he in a way disagreed with himself, but I find as years pass by, words, especially for the ones that work in media, are becoming more and more powerful. Because if you type it a certain way, that's another reason why I love podcasts, because I'm saying words, but you seeing how I'm saying it or the way I'm reacting to them, you can't really twist it. But sometimes you say certain words and they are triggers, and they trigger certain emotions. And it's just like right now, all of these identifiers and even how fast things are changing. And it is affecting, I believe, some people's lives in a certain way where they felt comfortable. Okay, now I can't step on some people's shoes, or like, oh, freak, I got this application. Now I got to make sure. It's changing civilization so much to where people aren't adapting well.
One of the things is, flat out, from how I'm seeing it, is none of this is new. We all know that. These have been around since your greats and probably before them too. But the fact that there's titles to it now, and that so many people are like, this is what I want, and these are the expectations, it's, people are feeling threatened by it, because you will meet that great granddad who's like, well, people were like that before, but they had responsibilities, and you'd be like, what? They're like, well, you can want to be with this man, but you still need to get a wife. And you're like, no, you don't. But they're like, we pulled through. Of course, it's been around, but we pulled through. And I'm like, well, we don't want to do that. And they're fighting for their normalcy. And I mean, that's just the war between generations, period, now.
And yeah, that's like what it boils down to, is just, that's why this all feels so new for people, is because we're only just now able to discuss any of this. We're only just now able to be visible, to exist in person, in public.
That is such a good point.
Yeah. Well, Kyle, I was actually going to throw it back to you because just talking about transitioning and everything. It's, you mentioned earlier that you were born intersex and now you identify as a male. I really want to hear about that journey.
Oh, okay, sure. Well, before I start, actually, Lee, thank you for saying that comment of what you literally just said. Thank you for saying it because I feel like that's something that should be brought up on this podcast and should be talked about by like all of us. Like, I think that's such a good point to bring up. But like, I think especially because of the freedoms of like, say, the internet, like a lot of people who've never had the chance to really speak up and say who they are or what they're about or just how they feel. A lot of people who've never had the voice or never had a voice or voices are finally speaking up and saying like, hey, I exist. Sorry for screaming. Hey, I exist and I'm here, and I'm this and I'm that and I'm go by this and I feel like that and I have this disability or I'm that, like, especially like as a disabled person. I've noticed this especially over the past like the decade and a half I've been on the internet. Like I've noticed this on like message boards growing up and Twitter and just everywhere. Like so many people who've never had the chance to speak up and never had IRL, in real life had the chance to speak up, finally get to say who they are and finally for like almost like freeing themselves, finally getting to speak and have an opinion and get a backbone and just form something and really get to identify themselves. I think I don't want to sound pretentious, but I feel like it's almost a revolution of what's happened over the past 2 decades of
it absolutely is
the power of technology. Through the power of technology, so many people who've in their lives maybe just never had the chance to speak their voice can finally speak their voice and finally get to really be a person. And to go on to, I guess, my story, well, I feel like in a way to kind of shortly summarize my own story, I describe it as a long time coming. I remember being about 5 or 6 years old, and I remember my mom was doing something around the house, and I was hanging out with her, and I remember just out of nowhere, I was just being a 5 or 6-year-old, and I just remember saying to my mom, "Hey, Mom, how come sometimes I feel like a boy?" And like thinking like now, I'm like, did I seriously say that to my mom? And like, I'm a 31-year-old and I'm just like, what the holy and then, like as a 5 or 6-year-old, that's like nothing. Like, I don't think about that. It's just the thing I say because I feel it. Because sometimes, yeah, I felt like a boy. It's just a thing I felt. And I remember my mom, and I'm so grateful she took it with stride and she just gave me this like mom answer, like, oh, well, sometimes blah, 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 blah. I actually don't remember what she said, funny enough, even though like that moment had such an impact on my life. But I remember her had just having this nice mom answer of like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, and years and years later now, being a fully grown adult and coming out of myself and just like realizing stuff about myself. I feel like the best way I could summarize my coming out story is just it was a long time coming. I feel like looking back at my own life, I had so many weird little clues about myself that I never realized until like, oh, it's no wonder why I did stuff like this or why I always liked wearing these types of clothes because I'm this person. Oh, wow, a lot of things make sense now. I feel like I just unlocked a door that it's always been locked in my life. And now I'm like, oh, I'm free. Yay. I unlocked the door and now I can leave and I can go look at other things and be in other places, excuse me. But yeah, my coming out story was, it was really like, yeah, a long time coming. I feel like so much of how I came out was just finding out things about myself and just finally having the courage to say it and finally just telling people just like, Oh, I'm a man. I've never thought I would come out and say this, and never thought I'd have the courage to say it, but I guess I do. I guess now is the time where I can finally say it. I'm this, and I'm asexual, and I'm a man, and like I'm also non-binary. I feel this way, and I've been thinking about it for a long period of my life, but I never knew the words to say it. I didn't know if I was just one person in a group of millions of people who didn't think that way, and I was the one person, and like, no, I'm not. Cool, there are other people just like me. That's amazing. Oh my goodness, I'm not alone. I'm not just some person screaming into a void. There are other people just like me, and that makes me feel wanted, and I'm yay. Like I know people now. This is wonderful. I apologize, my story is a little mishmashy, but yeah, I feel like that's the best way to describe my own coming out, was that it was a long time coming.
And thank you so much for telling your story, and
Thank you.
just being, not necessarily brave, but being yourself.
No, thank you for giving me the power to do so and just speak my story and share it. And because I feel like that's something, especially about pride, I feel like people either seem to forget or they don't realize, is that I feel like what really makes pride so beautiful is we share our differences and we tell our stories. Like I feel like that's what people like, the people who were in the Stonewall riots, like Marsha P. Johnson. I feel like that's what they were fighting for, was being able to share our differences with each other and really, tell our own stories and be our own people and share our own differences.
So right now, like I said, we're in a I think a period to where now, coming out I believe should be easier, should be accepted in some way. Would I be wrong to think that? Is it in the community? Are you seeing that it's a little bit easier for people to say, "Hey, I exist"? I'm
Should is
curious about that.
so should I feel like is hopeful thinking, because while the youth now have more openness, it's the adults who don't want to change. Many of the adults, if they do want to change, it's they do on the down low. It's that they don't want to come to terms with. It's the ways they want to uphold society. When I see my own students, and I'm not going to reveal anything here, is I just know that I'm proud of them, because that I wasn't able to do when I was their age, and that was only about a decade ago. There was a really quick thing in response to this that I wanted to respond to, that I think Brandon and Christina said, on how, like, there's identifiers for words and identities now. And I think part of that is because so many parts of our identities were like stolen or destroyed or hidden. And like if we were allowed to be loud and open about this before, and if historians were not trying to say, oh yeah, they were roommates, not just like gay lovers, there would be more of that shit now. And what I want people to understand, not just straight people, just not just gay people, like literally everybody, is that like often people from marginalized communities, whether or not y'all want to say y'all identify or don't identify it like this, is that a lot of people from marginalized communities, no matter where you're at in the world, have had their histories erased, destroyed, rewritten. Like look at even like the Bible itself. How many different versions are there? Which one's the real one? If you're looking at like Christianity, like the people are free to rewrite it as much as possible. But as long as like we search for truth in the world and who we are and like how we can move forward, I feel like that's something really notable. I appreciate that.
Yeah, somebody, one of my friends, he posted on Facebook. He said that, and he's straight. He says that pride is Black history.
It is. That's
In a
a really
way,
good.
I
That's a
agree.
really good point.
In a way, in a way, I do agree. And like going back to like the whole coming out thing, you know, I know from my wife, she brought up how Gabrielle Union and then what got Dwayne Wade have a kid, and people got onto them about their child, allowing him. I don't keep up
Zara.
with that stuff.
Zara.
Zara, yeah. Deciding, allowing their child to decide their gender, and a lot of people are saying the whole thing about being too young and not knowing. I want all of your opinion on what do you feel about the age of when you know something is off.
Well, to answer your first question, Brendan, I feel like it is and it isn't easier to come out nowadays. Like, it is easier, it is in a lot of different ways, but it's also still a little bit difficult. And that just comes from, I feel like, different scenarios and situations, if that makes any sense.
Like cyberbullying.
Yeah, there's that. That's actually a really, really good point. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I feel like whenever people try to bring in children or the age thing when it comes to talking about queer things and just like gender or sexuality, I've always had this mentality whenever people bring up children, because it's just like, I feel like people never seem to realize this, but children are the queerest people of all because they don't have any boundaries or restrictions. They're children. They're gonna explore. They're gonna explore everything. They're gonna see what works for them and what makes them feel good. Like, like children are the queerest people of anyone because they're like they
what do you have? Just pull down your pants and say,
yeah, exactly. They're kids. That's what a kid is gonna do because they're kids. That's what kids do. Like, the more you restrict a kid, the harder they're gonna fight back and be like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do what I want to do, like, because they're a kid.
And see, I'm gonna hop on that one because I understand that point too. I have no kids. I don't want kids. It's not something I
same.
Let me be quick about that one. But there've been too many kids in my life for my own comfort. So I have a very specific opinion about, like, if there's a child in my life who feels like they're wanting to transition or something, or whatever the scenario would be, I would be okay. I know I wouldn't be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm not ever gonna be like, I don't believe you, but I would definitely be that type of person. But like, hold out till a little older, and we'll see.
I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let you develop a little more and figure some things out, because maybe you didn't. Because I dead ass have a person in my life who didn't do the full transition from male to female, but they stopped taking their hormones and stuff. And there were some effects in the end from it, because they were like, I still identify as these things, but it didn't feel right either. So maybe that was a more mental type thing for them. I'm not sure. I didn't ever really go further into the conversation with them about it, but she definitely was like, it just didn't feel right, and I felt more comfortable like this. So they were like, I feel like I would regret it more if I went further. So I remember thinking that, I was like, oh, well, maybe this is the thing where you don't want to totally allow them to alter themselves too early. And I mean, I'm pretty sure you can't do it too young anyway, because your bodies are still. Would that make it easier? Side note, to have a child try to transition earlier, or
yeah, I think it actually would be a little easier,
because I don't know hormonally, because you're still growing. So I don't know what that would work out like anyway.
I'll take this one, because I think that somebody once said that children today know who they are more than adults who know who they are at their current age. And I think that, if you want to just say, hey, you can't do this or you can't do that, it's making them feel closed in, and it makes them even more confused. Like they can't express themselves and be themselves. So, like, personally, and y'all know that I'm a Christian. I believe that, God says man and woman. But, I can only invite you to Christ, stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want somebody to be unhappy or who they want to be in themselves. So that's how I look at it when it comes to that perspective. As me and my household, we would do things differently. But if the child is being that way and it is making them uncomfortable being themselves, then I couldn't, as a parent, deal with that. My child wasn't happy being themselves.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely try to encourage them, and I would do what I could, but I just know personally, I'm like, you're still young, and I'm gonna make you wait a little bit before we take the biggest of the leaps. Whatever makes you happy right now, cool.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's
part,
a child's age is kind of the perfect platform, though, because it's like you can really try things out with that sort of thing. Like, okay, so child, you feel like this. Well, then let's try that out. Let's see how you feel as this. You identify as this. Okay, well, then we'll see how this works for you. Like, like trying this out and maybe trying out pronouns and trying out your name and like anything else that you feel like you want to change or something. Like, let's experiment.
I like that. I don't know if Christina's talking about the possible fear of like, taking hormones and all of that. Cause I think like as with children, like in education, like most of my students are high schoolers. Like I know some of them are still changing. I know some of them are still developing. I know some of them are finicky as hell when it comes to the things they know or believe in. And I know some of them are still figuring it out. I think if I'm understanding this correctly, there might be that fear of like, not of like, the identity so much, but of like the physical change. I feel like that is the, I'm because I'm picturing it myself, what if I had a child who, because I don't have any children yet, what if they wanted to transition? I'm thinking like I would respect that, but I know like it would be scary to for me to like how would I go about that? I've personally heard stuff about like hormone blockers, stuff like that, but I actually don't know too much. But I know like for me, like I would allow my child to identify however they wanted, but I think the physical change would be kind of scary. Partially and due in part to like it can be really expensive, but mostly because that changes that a lot for them, and I guess tangentially, I don't know if I'm using that word right, the people around them as well.
Yeah, and you're so right about that because health insurance and insurance itself, that's been a battle with the LGBT community itself. So I mean, and that's a whole different subject that we can definitely get into. But man, y'all have been killing this episode. I'm learning so much. I'm stepping over toes. I hope I'm not. But I've learned so much from you all. You all have been dropping so much knowledge on the LGBT community and Pride itself. And we're gonna have more with these amazing cast of people that who want to celebrate Pride with us. We hope you're celebrating as well. Stay tuned. We have much more on the other side of the break. Stay tuned.
Tired of the same old boring clothes? Want to support your favorite podcast but don't know how? Well, you're in luck. The Straight Up Show podcast store is finally here. In our Teespring shop, you can find all the merch that tells the world you're keeping it straight up. From t-shirts to masks to even leggings, our store has you covered. Just visit straightupshowpodcast.com and click that merchandise button. That's STR8 upshowpodcast.com.
So far, our season finales have always been about celebrating straight up hitting a milestone. But this year, we're celebrating with you. This year, we want to celebrate with you by answering any questions you may have about the Straight Up crew, show, or just general questions. I would like to say anything goes, but who knows? You've probably heard worse on our show anyway. Send us your questions by emailing us at straightupshow@gmail.com or by messaging us on social media, Instagram if you need a preference, or our website. Links will be in the description, and yes, we do accept video messages.
All right, so welcome back to the Straight Up Show podcast. This is the Pride Month episode, Pride Celebration episode. We're joined by members of the LGBT community. They have been dropping gems and giving so much knowledge about Pride and what Pride and their stories about coming out and what they go through. I mean, this subject can go so far because there's so much to talk about that time just doesn't allow just this moment right now. But we want to wrap the show up and go around the room, and we want to ask, what is pride? What does pride mean to you? And I want to start off with one of our guests, Jason. Jason, you know, you've been on our show before, and we've asked this question to you before, but for our new listeners who didn't listen to our last episode with Pride, tell us, what does Pride Month, or what does pride mean to you?
I think to me, pride is confidence, pride is remembrance, pride is living, pride is truth, pride is being you, pride is just all of those things wrapped into a nice little rainbow. Rainbow. But pride is just being able to realize that you exist, you valid, and we're getting one step closer to living as the way y'all are supposed to be.
All right, thank you so much for that. All right, Kevin, same question. What does Pride or Pride Month mean to you?
Pride itself is about owning who you are. And I feel like the theory, or I don't know, the concept behind Pride Month is like all about helping society move forward. And Pride Month itself, I guess, is a symbol of how society is moving forward. And that's what I would say Pride is.
All right, Cal.
Right. Well, I feel like pride is so many things at once. I feel like pride in its timeline is a time of power and a time of freedom. I feel like it's a time when, I mean, you have all the days in the year to come out or just be who you are, but I feel like pride especially is a time to just be completely yourself and all of your flaws and your uniquenesses and your everything. It's the time to really be you and be who you are and be proud to be who you are and just be yourself and be honest with yourself and really celebrate that. I think it's a time to celebrate marginalized voices and people who don't get to speak up and people who haven't had the chance to speak up. It's a time to raise those voices and make them louder and make sure they get to say what they want to say and get to really just get their voices out and make sure their voices are heard and are understood. Because I mean, Pride technically did start with the help of many people during the Stonewall riots, but one especially was Marsha P. Johnson, a transgender woman of color, a transgender Black woman, a person who pretty much started a good majority of what Pride is right now. So it's a time to, I think, not only share stuff about yourself, but I think it's also a time to listen. It's a time to really hear people's stories and hear people really explain themselves and just really get to hear the people around you and really understand what your what your neighborhood is, what your scene is. Just really listen to people, really get to hear them out. But I think that's what pride really means to me.
All right, Lee.
For me, pride is well, I mean, Kyle kind of said it. Pride is a riot. That's how the first Pride started, was us, you know, our people fighting back against oppression. And that's where we still are. We're still fighting that same oppression every day. It hasn't really gone anywhere. It's just a constant war. And it's also a victory that, you know, we're celebrating. Hey, we've been in this fight for another year. We're still kicking. We're still rocking. Like, Pride has always been kind of punk, you know, like before all the like corporations that started like getting their hands into it, and you started seeing cops and stuff. But like Pride was always like this super rebellious thing. Like, yeah, we know, you know, you don't want to see us in your streets, but here we are. Here's our flags. Here, you know, here's our booty shorts or whatever. We exist. We're not going anywhere. We've always been here. This is our time. And that's what Pride is. It's our time.
Christina.
I'm going to say Pride, especially Pride Month, is more about the courage involved in it, and the respect for the courage that people involved have to show. It's about, even if you don't get it or even if you don't accept it, it's about learning and listening and being able to at least appreciate the stories that are involved. It's about allowing them the visibility of that moment, like, because if you don't like it, you're not going to like it regardless until you're ready to. I was like, so it's not about the people on the outside, and it's not it's not about the booty shorts. It's not about the leather. That's the fun part, that's just the laugh about it. I was like, but there's a lot of strength and courage that is involved with it, to be able to go out knowing people are against you, knowing that people are wanting to cause you harm and to hold you back from being able to do the things, but still being able to say, you know what, we're still gonna put ourselves out, because you might be in the position of feeling like, I can't be myself 364 days out of the year, but today I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to be vocal about it, and I'm going to show people that this is a part of me. And you're gonna, it takes that type of bravery to do it. There's people who might have to stay home that day, but they're like, I'm still here, I'm still waving my flag, I'm still cheering you on. But that's why I was like, it's all about the courage and the strength behind it, to go out there and be in the streets and online, especially knowing what can come back at you from it. So it's just a good time, and it's something that people should really appreciate and respect a little more.
Brandon?
All right, so for me, and Kevin pretty much said a good amount of it, but Pride Month for me is owning up to who you are, celebrating and reminding people who you are. At the same time, it's also a reminder that we have work to do. I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this, but for me, Pride Month is like Black History Month. I'll be the first to say that African Americans are one of the most prideful races, and it's also a movement. If you want to join in that movement, you need to help stop some of these transgender laws that people are actually coming up with, because there's a lot happening that people might not know. So if you're listening to this episode, definitely just try to do some research and vote some of these anti-children transgender laws that they are really trying to block people from living their lives, like what we talked about in the show.
Wow. And thank y'all all so much for y'all's responses. And definitely thank you to Kevin, Jason, and Cal for coming on our show today. You've all done a great job. And I definitely want to extend the invitation for y'all to come back.
I'd love to.
Same.
You already know.
So just to kind of give my perspective of what Pride Month is. Like I said, I proudly announce that I am a Christian, and I try to follow the Bible the best. But even with that being said, being a Christian, nobody's perfect. And so I look at that. But one thing the Bible does teach me is to love and understand. And I can only teach you what I know and what I respect in my life, but I can never just, I guess, cultivate you in some way like that. But when I see pride, it just to have a good friend like Lee, who, in a way that where I was so just, homophobic by certain things, and, grew up in the hood thinking one thing, and, and not knowing that the struggle is real, not just for my race, but other people as well. And I always talk about this because, it's a great story, but just seeing Lee getting married, and I know the personal things that, you were going through, and, but to see you just light up with excitement about getting married. Fortunately for you, you had to go to Colorado, and then 6 months later, but just to see the happiness that he had, that made me feel like, this is okay for me. I can be an ally. I can actually speak out and say these things, right? Because I have family members who are of the LGBT community as well, and I love them just as much, so I could do the same thing with my friends. And it is about just being prideful of who you are and be proud of who you are. And it's bravery to come out and say, hey, I'm part of the LGBT community, and I'm not scared. I'm not scared to come out and say things, because a lot of people who are against the LGBT community are probably the ones who are scared to be a part of the LGBT community. And they're probably gay or by themselves, and they're just scared of it, especially the ones in DC and the ones making laws about it. But it's a point to where we have in this past year, and especially with George Floyd dying, I've seen a form of unity that I have never seen in my entire life. Went through a whole pandemic, and people were on the streets protesting. Was it safe? Probably not. But they believed in something so strong about somebody dying at the hands of police officers, and they're just tired of the injustices going on. And Brandon said it's like kind of like Black History, because, you know, we just want our voices to be heard. And that's with anybody. And I think that's what Pride Month means is like, you know, we're here, and it's a joke that says, hey, we're here, we're queer, we're not close, we used to get used to it. But like, it's a joke, but that's kind of how Pride is to me. It's just that we're here. They're here, and we're here. Like, Black people, we're here. Like, we just want our voices to be heard. And I'm not much one person that even through this podcast, I still don't understand pronouns. I may call Kyle or he or she by accident, but it takes time, and you have to train people how to treat you. And, you know, it doesn't take one day, it doesn't take, you know, a month, it takes a time. But the more you keep coming back thirsty for knowledge, the more you can grow. And I think that that's what we need right now, is that we need a form of unity in this country and the world, that, you know, we can stop using labels and just be ourselves without having labels. Like, I like this person, I love this person. As long as they make you happy, what does it matter what the other person thinks, right? Lee, that's it, man. You did a great job. Thank you so much for putting this together for us.
Dude, thank you so much for the opportunity. Just to kind of shout out Calvin a bit. I mean, when he hit me up, you know, over a year ago now, like, hey, I want to, you know, take this straight up thing, do a podcast with it. I want you to be involved. I'm like, yeah, I'm happy to help. And you know, he could have easily just, you know, glossed over like those like aspects of my life, you know, the gay side, the queer side. But he was like, no, I'm embracing that. Let's make a show about Pride. And, you know, we did that last year. And then for him to come back and say, yeah, what are we doing this year for it? Not even like, do you want to do one, but what are we doing for Pride this year? It just, you know, it says a lot to his character. And like Kyle, Kevin, Jason, I want to thank y'all so much for coming. Just knowing like other people like me exist out there. It's like, it's this weird little thing that just kind of helps you get through the day, you know?
I was really excited to do it. Thank you. Like, I've been jacked up all weekend, just like, oh my God, it's happening tomorrow. Yes. Like, I am dancing on the ceiling. Just, yes, heck yes, I'm ready to do this, you know?
So we thank y'all so much, and we thank you for those kind words, because like I said, if it takes just one person to spread the word, you know, we just want everybody to be happy and love yourself no matter what. And that's what we're here for. And we want you to join the conversation. You can go to our website always, and you can look up merch. You can listen to previous podcasts, leave us messages about what you think about the show. Of course, if you hate the show, we have an email address that you can send all your hate mail to. Leave that email address is...
I believe that email is still currently idon'tcare@gmail.com.
I don't care at gmail.com. Of course, we're just kidding. But join the conversation always. Go to our website at www.straightupshowpodcast.com. That's www.str8upshowpodcast.com. Follow us on social media. And like I said, if you haven't gotten vaccinated, make sure you get vaccinated. But until then, happy Pride Month, everybody. Thank y'all so much for joining our show. Until next time, there's only one rule to our show, and that you have to be
straight up.
Straight up.
Straight up.